Peace and love, black family. It's the Prince of Pan-Africanism, Dr. Umar Johnson, coming to you live and direct from Brooklyn, New York City. First of all, I want to apologize to all the brothers and sisters who are coming out to yesterday's power lecture, my first one since my return from my historic Africa-Asia tour that took me to the Republic of South Africa, the Kingdom of Lesotho, the Empire of Japan, and the People's Republic of China. I want to apologize for having to cancel the lecture, something I've never had to do, and something I definitely did not want to do to a city that means so much to me as in New York. However, due to issues of security, I wasn't able to locate my security team for 36 hours leading up to the event. And I did not feel comfortable having a public event without adequate security. I know that New York City, the 5 boroughs, Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, Long Island, Manhattan, Harlem, the Bronx, I know I get nothing but love from that section. My New York, my New Jersey, my Connecticut family, I know that you all have nothing but love for Dr. Umar Johnson. However, in the interest of public safety, I have to be realistic. And the truth of the matter is, although 90% of African people love Dr. Umar Johnson, although 95% of African people love Dr. Umar Johnson, there's 5% of African people who can't stand my guts. I have enemies in every city. I have people who want to destroy me in every city, in every state, in every town, for no other reason than jealousy and animosity. And because of that, I have to be more conscious. I have to be more security conscious. In my decision yesterday to cancel the event, or should I say postpone, because the event is not canceled, it will take place, and I will have a new date and time, God willing, before this week is out. I will have a new date and time, God willing, before the week is out. And everyone who bought tickets yesterday who did not request a refund will definitely be able to get in that event for free. And if we have extra space, I will sell tickets if we have extra space. But my priority is to find a size that is adequate enough to accommodate the brothers and sisters who are not able to gain entry into yesterday's event. So again, I apologize, Brooklyn, I apologize, New York City, but it was a decision I felt that I had to do based on security. Again, I could not locate my security for 36 hours leading up to the event, and I had to make a judgment call at 2 o'clock. Because 2 o'clock was the time that we were supposed to get into the venue, start mapping it out in terms of security, and then begin setup in time for the vendors to arrive. I want to apologize to the vendors. I want to apologize to all the vendors, some of whom were coming from out of town. Please get in contact with me if you want your refund, or if you want to wait and see if you can attend the makeup lecture in New York City, that's fine too. And if you find that you cannot attend the makeup lecture in New York City to my vendors, then at that time, you will be able to request a refund. So New York City, the lecture will still happen, but again, I apologize it didn't happen yesterday. Today, what I want to do, and for those of you who don't know, there's going to be a memorial today for Queen Mother Leola Maddox, who was the Queen Mother of the United African Movement. Many of you know the work of attorney Alton Maddox, his wife of so many years, Leola Maddox. She passed away, I want to say about a month ago. We attended her funeral, her homegoing in Atlanta, Georgia. In Atlanta, Georgia, across the street from the Dr. King Memorial Complex. But there is a memorial for her today from 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock in Brooklyn, New York City. And Dr. Umar Johnson is hanging around because I want to pay respects to her. I did attend the funeral, but I also want to attend the memorial service today. For those of you who are interested in attending the memorial service for Mother Leola Maddox, not to see Dr. Johnson. This is not about me. This is about her. If you're interested in paying respects to her and her surviving family, that will be today, Saturday, June 3rd, from 4 p.m. until 7 p.m. And the location is the Mannion Stonebridge Hall. The Mannion Stonebridge Hall. That is M-A-N-N-I-O-N. M-A-N-N-I-O-N. The Mannion Stonebridge, one word, Stonebridge Hall. The Mannion Stonebridge Hall. The address, 139 Chauncey Street. I repeat, the address is 139 Chauncey Street. C-H-A-U-N-C-E-Y in Brooklyn, 11233. If you're taking the train, it is between Stuyvesant and Malcolm X Boulevard. If you're taking the train, it's between Stuyvesant and Malcolm X Boulevard. You can take the AC train to Utica Avenue and walk 1 block. Again, if you're taking public transportation to Queen Mother Leola Maddox's memorial service today, you can take the AC train to Utica Avenue, and then you can walk 1 block. Okay. With that being said, I want to do a short seminar today on an issue that has very big relevance and consequences for the global African community. This is an issue not only in the United States and Canada and the UK. It is an issue in Africa, Australia. It is an issue in Asia. It is an issue in the Caribbean, Central South America, and that is domestic violence in the black community. And so I want to talk somewhat about domestic violence in the black community. Okay? First of all, it is important for us to know that only about 15% of domestic violence victims report their crime. Only 15% of domestic violence victims reports their crimes. And that is understandable for African people. It may not be healthy, but it is understandable for African people. And the reason it is understandable is because black women in particular, when they become victims of domestic violence, black women do not like suffering the effects of racism that comes from white people when they report domestic violence. In other words, black women who report domestic violence, survivors of domestic violence, our sisters in particular, okay, they don't feel comfortable going to white people about black people. And some of that doesn't come from political consciousness. It comes from the fact that we are viewed as animals anyway by Europeans. It comes from the fact that we are viewed as less than human by Europeans. It comes from the fact that white people have an age-old notion that black people are historically and genetically violent, that we are predisposed to violence. So when black women are brutalized by their mates, when they tell white people about that, it's not taken as seriously because the perpetrator and the victim is black. So one of the reasons black women do not report domestic violence, which is the same reason many sisters do not report sexual violence, is because the way that they are treated. Now, you must add to that the fact that in most states, domestic violence is considered a felony. In most states in the United States, domestic violence is considered a felony. So if domestic violence is considered a felony, that means if you have children with this man, and he's going to be sent away to prison for putting his hands on you, okay, depending on his prison history, okay, he may never come home again. That might be his 3rd strike. And even if he does come home again, because it is a felony, he could be sentenced to 5, 10, 15, 20 years or even longer for domestic violence, given the amount, given the intensity and the extent of the violence, and also given the rate of the violence, how many times it has actually happened. So many black women, being conscious of the fact that they don't want to separate their children from their fathers, even if they are abusive. Many black women being conscious of the fact that they do not want to separate their children from their fathers, even when those men are abusive, they would rather suffer in silence. And that is the problem. We have too many black women suffering in silence from the result of domestic violence. And I can tell you by way of the email messages that I get from black women across the world that the conscious community is not immune to this. The black consciousness movement is not immune to domestic violence. I've heard some of the most, what I want to say, sensationalized names in the black conscious community of having been guilty or being charged, allegedly charged with being perpetrators of domestic violence. So even the Hotep brothers, can be especially brutal in their treatment of their queens. Okay, and I always, those of you who know my work, I always put forth one of the rationales for the violence by black men against black women is the fact that black men are so castrated emotionally in America. We are so arrested in our development as men that the only place we can find peace of mind, or the only place where we can express traditional masculine aggression without being perceived as a threat, is in our homes. The only place a black man can express a traditional masculine aggression without being considered a threat is in their homes, which unfortunately means that we end up taking out our pain and our rage and our anger and our aggravation and our disappointment against the only people who truly care about us. And in many cases, that's our family. It is ironic that the black man is more likely to abuse the only supporting cast he has in his life, and that is his black queen and his black children. That is his black queen, and that is his black children. You understand? So this is a problem that we have to get under control, but I want to be very clear. This is not a problem that white psychology can solve. This is not a problem that racism can solve for black people. And the reason it's not a problem that racism can solve for black people is because racism helped create many of the problems, all of the problems that black people have. So it would be an extreme contradiction for one institution of white supremacy to solve the problems created by another institution of white supremacy. So we cannot look to European mental health system, the European psychological establishment, the European psychiatric industrial complex to solve this issue. This has to be solved within the black community. And even elders have been guilty of perpetuating domestic violence. Even conscious community elders, from what I have come to learn, have been guilty of perpetuating domestic violence against black women. But it's also important for us to know that domestic violence victims are not only women. Black men can be victims of domestic violence. Black men can be victims of domestic violence. And I would argue that black men often are not conscious of the fact that they are also being victimized by domestic violence. Many black men fail to realize that when women are constantly beating on them, threatening them, damaging their personal belongings, psychologically terrorizing them, stalking them, that is domestic violence. And unfortunately, too many black men allow domestic violence by black women to go unchecked for so long until he gets so angry that he ends up, practicing his version of retributive justice by abusing the black woman who was guilty of abusing him. And this is why it's very important for black men to walk away from romantic situations where the woman is domestically abusive. And one of the things that black women need to understand from a psychotherapeutic standpoint is some black women were nurtured and raised in a system of intergenerational trauma by way of domestic violence. Many black women were raised in homes where intergenerational trauma by way of domestic violence was the normal state of affairs in that family. In other words, if a woman grows up in a house where grandmom got beat by granddad, and then her mom got beat by her dad or her boyfriend, she begins to equate love with pain. She begins to equate commitment with pain. She begins to equate psychological terrorism with love. And once a woman begins to feel that you have to hurt me to love me, once a woman begins to feel that you have to inflict physical harm and brutality against me to show that you care, if she doesn't get enough pain, excuse me, checking out at noon, my mom. Okay. Yes, noon. Okay. Okay. So some women can feel if she's not getting enough pain from her mate, she will then try to invoke the pain. So a woman may try to incite a man to hit her. A woman may try to incite a man to jealousy. A woman may try to incite a man to rage because that's how she feels secure. And I've even heard this from teenage girls, young sisters, who believe that if a man isn't jealous, if a man isn't possessive, if he doesn't show some type of physically controlling behavior, he doesn't care about me. That is very dangerous. And that is one of the mindsets in relationship paradigms that we're going to have to shift if we want to rebuild a healthy black community. That's going to have to be one of the mindsets and mental paradigms that we're going to have to shift if we want to build an emotionally healthy black community. Okay, we cannot have that type of behavior against our women. Now, going back to 2006, a decade ago, only 8% of domestic violence victims reported their victimizers. Only 8%. Okay, and one of the reasons a lot of times women don't report domestic abuse is because they are terrorized. You know, the man gets inside of their head and makes them feel that if you even think about calling the police or anyone else on me, okay, I will kill you. I will hurt you. And when we talk about death, okay, let us be very clear. Okay, in the United States of America, romance, more frequently than almost any other country in the world, can result in violence, a violent death. Okay, there are black women who are dead today. There are black women who are dead today because they did not take the violent assertions of their past mates to be serious enough. Okay, black women, you have to cut out of these situations. You know, for those of you who have ever seen my For Sisters Only Relationships and Dating seminar, you know I talk about a personality type, 5 types of dysfunctional male personality types. And one of those 5 types of dysfunctional male personality types is known as the predator. You've heard me talk about the predator. And the predator is the domestically abusive black man. The predator is the domestically abusive black man. The predator is the black man who will psychologically intoxicate you with good thoughts, good feelings, good experiences, and then slowly he begins to inflict, okay, psychological abuse. He starts criticizing you. He begins to condemn you, and then he starts threatening to hit you. First, there's the psychological criticism. The psychological abuse precedes the physical abuse. The psychological abuse precedes the physical abuse. And this is why black women need to learn when to cut and run. Sisters need to learn when to cut and run. Because once you start hearing those physical threats, once a man starts telling you, you know, I'll kick your ass, you know, I'll smack the shit out you, and he may say it as a joke, but it's important for you to understand that there's a little bit of truth in every joke. It is important for you to understand that there is a little bit of truth in every joke. And once he begins to start making these jokes about you, you can best believe that somewhere within that joke is a morsel of truth. And you need to make it very clear to him that you do not play when it comes to domestic abuse. Do not make jokes about hurting me. Do not make jokes about hitting me. It is very important that you lay down the groundwork early in a relationship. And one of your non-negotiables, okay, one of the non-negotiables for black women should be physical violence. If a man touches you or threatens to touch you, the relationship should end. If a man touches you or threatens to touch you, the relationship would end. However, one of the problems is we live in a very materialistic community. The black community is extremely materialistic, and some black women view their access to material gain as more important than their emotional and physical health and safety. Some black women view their access to material gain as being more important than Some black women view their access to material gain as being more important than the emotional and psychological health. See, one thing we need to understand about domestic abuse, we have this notion that most men who abuse women are working poor. They are the underclass. They are the impoverished brothers. Nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing could be further from the truth. Not only does the research show us, but I can even tell you from clinical experience. Okay? And I've been a therapist for almost 20 years, that middle class and upper middle class men abuse their women as much as poor men. Let me say it again. Middle class and upper middle class men abuse their women as much as poor men. Lawyers abuse their women. Doctors abuse their women. Engineers abuse their women, okay? Because abuse has nothing to do with socioeconomic status. Abuse has nothing to do with socioeconomic status. Abuse has to do with a type of mindset which may have been born of trauma and experience and conditioning and indoctrination that views the need to inflict harm on other people in order to control them. And of course, if you feel that you need to control another individual, that's mental illness in and of itself. Let me say that again. If you feel that you need to control another person in order for you to control your life, that in and of itself is mental illness. You should never feel that you have to control another person. In fact, if you're ever in a relationship with someone who feels that they have to control you, you shouldn't be in that relationship. Healthy people don't have a need to control nobody but themselves. Healthy people don't have a need to control anyone. Healthy people don't have a need to control anyone except themselves. So if you're ever in a relationship, male or female, with someone who believes that they need to control you, that's a relationship that you need to get out of. Okay? Now, Women, black women who are victimized are 3 times as likely to go on and develop clinical depression. Black women who are victimized at the hands of domestic abuse are 3 times as likely to go on and develop clinical depression. Why is this an issue? This is an issue because after the sister gets beat down, and not only does she physically get beat down, she gets emotionally beat down. One of the hidden outcomes, consequences of domestic abuse is low self-esteem. One of the hidden outcomes and manifestations of domestic abuse is low self-esteem. I know a lot of black women who suffer from low self-esteem, beautiful women, physically successful women, but they suffer from low self-esteem as a result of years and years of domestic abuse. Some of them were domestically abused by their fathers, domestically abused by their brothers, domestically abused by uncles. Some of them were sexually abused. So, to be honest with you, sometimes I understand why some of the sisters in the black community have the type of reactions to Dr. Umar Johnson that they have. I understand it because for many of them, I symbolize, for whatever reason, the man who hurt them, the man who abused them. So when some of you see comments that are made about me that are extremely disrespectful and disparaging coming from women who've never even met me, okay, you say, wow, why would she say something like that to Dr. Umar? She don't even know this man. She never even met this man. And a lot of that comes from the fact that symbolically, I represent the pain. Symbolically, I represent the trauma. Symbolically, I represent the hurt. And it's not only Dr. Umar Johnson. I may represent that nationally and internationally, but every black man represents that trauma. And that's why when sisters get into relationships, a lot of times they never drop their guard because they've been so abused that it's difficult to drop their guard. And to some extent, you can't blame them because dropping your guard can be dangerous. Dropping your guard around your children can be dangerous. Dropping your guard around your mate can be dangerous. And so we have black women intergenerationally who have been scarred and abused by men where domestic abuse is part of family culture. Have you ever seen a situation where the great grandma was a victim? The grandma was a victim. The mom was a victim. The daughter's a victim. Now the granddaughter's a victim. I mean, generations of black women who are all abused by their men. And this is why I tell black women, you should never let your children experience you being domestically abused. You should never let your children experience you being domestically abused. Why? Because if a daughter sees her mother get beat, she's more likely to accept abuse in her own life. She's more likely to equate abuse with love, and she's more likely to normalize the abuse. She's more likely to normalize the abuse. If your son sees her mother get abused, he's more likely to abuse his own women. So, because I've heard women say, I can't leave my relationship because we took an oath before God. I've had women tell me this, okay? We took an oath before God. This marriage was sanctioned by God. I cannot divorce my husband for any reason, okay? I respect marriage, and I believe marriage needs to be fought for, and it needs to be protected and preserved. But at the same time, okay, you protecting your marriage, but you're not protecting the emotional health of your children. You're protecting your marriage, but you're not protecting the emotional health of your children. Ultimately, what you're doing is you are sowing the seeds for them to later be victimized or become victimizers themselves. You're sowing the seeds for them later to become victimized in the case of your daughter, or to become a victimizer himself in the case of your son. Okay, and we must also keep an eye on our mothers and grandmothers, because older women are abused as much as younger women. Did y'all hear what I just said? I'm going to repeat that, because that's something that I didn't even learn about until I did the research. That's something that I didn't even learn about until I did the research. Older women are victimized at the hands of their mates as much as young women. Yes, could you imagine a 70-year-old woman being beat on? A 60-year-old woman being beat on? We know 40 and 50-year-old women get beat on, but what about 60 and 70 and 80, even 90-year-old women being beat on? And what we find, the older a couple gets, the more likely the man is to abuse his spouse. The older a couple gets, once the body begins to decline, once the mind begins to decline, once a man's quality of life begins to decline, he's more likely to put hands on his elderly wife, because he's going through changes in his life. He can no longer do the things he used to do. His health is beginning to decline. His mind is beginning to decline. And that anger and that rage and that disappointment ends up being what? Released, okay, and distributed on the only person who unequivocally loves him, and that's his elderly wife. So even though your grandparents have been happily married for 50 years, check on grandma. Even though your grandparents have been happily married for 50 years, check on grandma. We have to check on the elders in the community, because they are just as likely to be abused as are younger women. Okay. In fact, the stresses of old age and the accompanying helplessness felt by many older men make them candidates for perpetrators of domestic violence. The other thing we also know is that most physicians and medical doctors do not document. Most physicians and medical doctors do not document domestic violence. Now, doctors are mandated reporters. If a doctor knows that a woman is being abused, he is supposed to report that. But most doctors don't, especially when it comes to black women, because once again, as a people, we are perceived, okay, to have violence as a part of our nature. So no one takes it seriously when a black woman is abused by her mate. Studies have found that highly educated and employed women with medical coverage are just as victimized by domestic violence as poor women. Remember, I said earlier that perpetrators of domestic abuse span all socioeconomic levels. It spans all ages. Men at all ages abuse women. But it's important to know that women of all ages can also be abused. So we have very successful black women, doctors, lawyers, engineers, and business owners who are routinely abused by their mates. Routinely abused, because psychological illness, emotional trauma has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with education. So we have to stop looking at this as a poor people's problem. We have to stop looking at this as purely a problem in the hood. This is a problem for black women at every age level, at every socioeconomic status, and it is a problem for black men at every age level and at every socioeconomic status. Okay? Half of abused women suffer from more than one type of abuse. Now this is powerful. This is powerful. Half of all abused women suffer from more than one type of abuse. And I hope my sisters are listening to me. I want the brothers to listen too. Okay. But a man is not as likely to be murdered as a result of domestic abuse than a woman is. A man is not as likely to be murdered as a result of domestic abuse as a woman is. But I want the brothers to listen up, but I especially want our sisters to listen up. I'm talking to black women. And I know a lot of you don't want to hear this. A lot of you don't want to hear this because you've been suffering in silence for so long. But Dr. Umar Johnson is here to tell you it's time to end your cycle of trauma. It's time to put an end to the intergenerational curse that has been afflicting your family for generations upon generations. We want you to end it now so your daughter knows that domestic violence is not normal. We want you to end it now so your granddaughter knows that domestic violence is not normal. We want you to end it now so that your son and grandson knows that it is never acceptable or allowable to put your hands on a woman. Half of all domestic abuse victims suffer from more than one type. So you have emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. Emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. Emotional abuse, physical abuse, and sexual abuse. And what this statistic is saying here, is that rarely do you find black women who suffer from just one type of abuse. She's either being emotionally abused and physically abused, or she's being sexually abused and emotionally abused, or physically abused and sexually abused. It's more than one type. So we got to wrap hands around our sisters and show love to black women. Teenage girls are just as likely, and sometimes more likely, to get victimized by their boyfriends. We have a growing phenomenon in the black community, a growing crisis where teenage girls, our daughters, are being beat up by their boyfriends. And in many cases, the mother and father is aware of this. The mother and father are aware, and they don't do anything about the fact that their daughters are being beat on by their boyfriends. I see it in the hallways inside of high schools where the boys are grabbing them up, cursing at them, and the girls look at this as some sort of endearment. Again, they equate violence with commitment. They equate passion with pain. They equate love with physical abuse. So we have to definitely teach and train our boys and our girls to understand that love has nothing to do with pain. Love should not hurt. Children in homes where domestic violence takes place are more likely to be abused. So the man who abuses the woman, he normally doesn't end with the woman. He also ends up abusing the children as well. Let me say this again. Men don't just abuse the women, they often end up abusing the children also. Did y'all hear that? So rarely do you have a home where the mom is being abused, but the daughter is not. Rarely do you have a home where the mom is being abused and the son is not. Normally, the entire family is being victimized. And what do we know about men who abuse? Most men who abuse were abused. Most men who abuse were abused, right? Most pedophiles were victimized by pedophilia. So we see this intergenerational cycle of trauma. We see this intergenerational cycle of trauma that we as a people need to put an end to. Okay. Victims of domestic violence were often child abuse victims and were more likely to witness domestic abuse themselves. 73% of abuse victims are women and 75% of perpetrators are men. 73% of abuse victims are women and 75% of perpetrators are men. However, the incidence of men being abused by women is growing. The incidence of men being abused by women is growing. Some women in their trauma began to behave like the traumatizer in future relationships. In other words, I was controlled like this in my past relationship, so I'm going to control my man the same way men have controlled me. Some women are of the mindset that they need to control men the way that they have been controlled by men in the past. And this is why when we date people, we have to do a very thorough psychological inventory. You have to be your own psychologist. You have to evaluate people to see whether or not they are healthy enough to take up space in your house. Don't let people rent space in your life if they don't deserve it. Don't let people rent space in your life if they don't deserve it. Okay? Anytime you take up space, you have to rent, right? You have to pay. There's a fee when you lease a house, lease an apartment, lease a car, lease a vacation home. You have to pay for space. Stop giving people free space in your life. Stop giving people free space in your life. Don't let nobody rent space in your life for free. It is not worth it. Domestic violence is also high amongst gay, lesbian, and transgender. Okay, some of you will find this surprising. I don't, because I've seen a lot of cases like this. Even amongst the LGBTQI, domestic violence is a very big problem. So the woman is being beat on by her lesbian lover, or the man is being beat on by his homosexual lover. The transgender, okay, there's a lot of domestic abuse amongst the transgender. So this cuts across all sexual orientations. And of course, I do not support LGBT relationships at all. I respect all black people, whether they are LGBTQI or not, but I do not condone those relationships. I don't consider them to be healthy for our community or healthy for our children. Okay, but yet and still, okay, if brothers and sisters are being victimized in LGBTQ relationships, I don't have a problem working with them. I don't have a problem helping them. I don't want to see black people punished. See, your principles are one thing. Okay, your principles are one thing. I have my principles. I stand on them. I don't give them up. I don't break them. Helping people is something else. My principles are one thing. Helping people is something else. I will never break my principles. But one of my principles is to help all black people wherever I find them, in whatever situation they are in any way that I can. The average age of domestic violence victim is 25 to 54. The average age for domestic violence is 25 to 54. The average age of domestic violence is 25 to 54, which is basically the age during which a woman, develops success, builds success, becomes success, right? 25 to 54. And one thing, going back to the predator, going back to that predator, dysfunctional black male personality type, as I said, he's a master psychologist. Okay, first he starts off by treating you well, then the emotional violence begins, and then the physical violence begins. And right before the physical violence, he drops a lot of hints and signs that he's about to start beating on you. But a lot of sisters don't take these signs seriously. Again, right before the physical violence takes place, he drops a lot of signs and hints to let you know that the violence is about to come. But unfortunately, black women don't always take it seriously. He'll tell you, I'm about to hurt you. I'm about to smack the shit out of you. If you don't stop, I'm going to put hands on you. And then he starts practicing. He starts punching walls, busting windows, throwing stuff around the house. He's getting ready. He's practicing for the super fight. He's practicing for the super fight. The black woman sees this, but by this time, he done destroyed her self-esteem. He done brought her self-esteem so low that she don't think she can exist without him. He done brought her self-esteem so low that she don't believe she can exist without him. So despite the warning signs, despite the writing on the wall, the woman doesn't stand up and walk out of these types of situations. But I'm here to tell my sisters, my black women, I love you all. Stop letting yourself be abused. Stop letting yourself be abused. And this is why every woman needs to have an alpha male in her life that meets the man she's dating. Every woman needs to have an alpha male or a group of them in her life that meets the man that she's dating, so he knows before he even gets started that I got men who ain't gonna let this happen. This is important because sisters, y'all like to date in private and y'all got this whole private thing going on. It's not benefiting you to date in private. Stop the private dating. The men in your life need to know who you're dealing with. They need to meet him and look him in the eye and say, yes, this is my sister, and I care about her, and I love her, and I respect her, and I'm expecting you to care about her too. All right, fam? I just want to let you know. Nothing gonna happen to her. I respect you. I'm not disrespecting. Nothing better never happen to this woman here. We gonna have issues. I just want to let you know that right now. It's important that men know that women have men in their lives who absolutely care about them. Okay. 1 in 5 people murdered in 2002 were murdered by a relative. 1 in 5 people murdered in 2002 were murdered by a relative. 1 in 5 people murdered in 2002 were murdered by a relative or a lover. Did y'all hear that, black women? Black women, did you hear that? Black men, did you hear that? Because we even have situations now where black women are killing black men. Black women are killing black men. You cheated on me. You went outside this relationship. I'm going to blow your damn brains out. Okay, they don't just wake up thinking that. You've seen signs along the way that you did not heed or take seriously. You've seen signs along the way that you did not heed or take seriously. Okay, 1 out of every 5 people murdered in 2002 were murdered by a relative or a lover. What did Jesus Christ say? Your enemies might be of your own family. What did Jesus Christ say? A man's enemies may be of his own family. Children who are treated scornfully by their parents are more emotionally scarred and more likely to attract abusing partners. Did y'all hear that? Children who were abused are so emotionally scorned that they attract people who can smell their powerlessness. Black women, I want you to hear this. Black men too, but black women. Children who were abused by their parents can become so emotionally scorned. Self-esteem can be so low that you attract into your life people who will take advantage of you because they can smell your neediness. They can smell your low self-esteem. They can smell your passive aggression. This is important. And this is why parents don't need to abuse their children. And this is also why I'm a big proponent. I am a big proponent of the belief that a black man should never physically spank his daughter. A black man should never physically spank his daughter. A black man should never physically spank his daughter. If your daughter needs to be spanked, her mother should do it. It is very important. I believe domestic violence is so big of an issue in our community that our daughters should never have to deal with a man putting his hands on her, even her own father. Our daughters should never have to deal with a man putting his hands on her, even her own father. Okay? Okay? So it's important that we be conscious of the unspoken, nonverbal messages we send out to people, inviting them into our lives to control it. Black women, if you have been a repetitive victim of domestic abuse, if you have dealt with more than 2 men who have abused you, I can almost promise you that in your dating behavior, listen to me, sisters, listen to me, any black woman out there who has been repeatedly victimized by men, physically, sexually, psychologically, okay, I can almost promise you that you are emitting messages. You are communicating nonverbal messages to the men you date that it is safe to take advantage of you. That it is safe to take advantage of you. You're going to have to wear your poker face more often. You're going to have to stop being so self-indulgent. And that's another issue with black women. They can be self-indulgent when they meet men. So you meet a man for the first time and you're already just pouring yourself totally into him. You meet a man for the first time and you just pour yourself all into him. If you're pouring yourself all into a man like that, you're basically communicating powerlessness. Powerlessness. What did I say on my For Sisters Only relationship seminar that I did in Tokyo? Remember, I did the Tokyo seminar. Y'all can find it on my Facebook. The Tokyo seminar for Sisters Only when I was in Tokyo, Japan. Shout out to Asia. I enjoyed myself. Shout out to Tokyo. Shout out to Nagoya. Shout out to Beijing. Shout out to Shanghai. I really enjoyed China and Japan. Can't wait to come back and build some more with the brothers and sisters in Asia. And we're working on that. Okay. But sisters, remember I talked about when you come into a relationship with 50% power, you come into a relationship with a 50% power equation. You have 50% of the power in the relationship. The man has 50% of the power in the relationship. You have 50% of the power in the relationship, and your partner has 50% of the power in the relationship. But when he starts abusing you and you accept it, when he starts physically abusing you, emotionally abusing you, and you accept it, you're giving him your power. You're giving him your power. And every time you accept an act of disrespect, the power differential grows. You see that? Every time you accept an act of disrespect, the power differential goes. So y'all started at a 50% equal. You were equal. The first date y'all dated, y'all were equal. He had nothing but respect for you, total. But when you start letting him disrespect you, he takes on more power and you lose. When you start letting him disrespect you, he takes on more power and you use. It's important to keep the power equal. A woman in a domestically abusive relationship has given all her power away. She now has 0. A woman in a domestically abusive relationship has given all of her power away. She now has 0. Okay? Daughters who witness their mothers get abused are more likely to be abused themselves. Boys who witness domestic violence are more likely to commit themselves. A survey study with doctors found 90% of doctors did not report domestic violence. Check this out. Guns. Guns. Handguns were the most common weapon used by males to murder females. Handguns is the most common weapon used by men to murder women at a rate of 54%. 54% of women killed by their lovers were killed by guns. 54% of women murdered by their lovers were murdered with guns. Dating can be dangerous. If you have low self-esteem, you don't need to be dating. Dating can be dangerous. If you have low self-esteem, you don't need to be dating. Dating can be dangerous. If you have low self-esteem, you don't need to be dating. Black women, conscious of the obstacles faced by black men, are more likely to bear the burden and not report out of guilt and an unwillingness to serve him up to the authorities. In other words, black women don't report because they don't want their children being stripped of their father. They don't want their children looking at them saying, you're the reason my daddy is in jail. So black women suffer twice. They suffer at the hands of the victim and they suffer at the hands of the racist criminal justice system. Black women suffer at the hands of their victims, the hands of the perpetrators. Black women suffer at the hands of the perpetrators of domestic abuse, and then black women also suffer from a racist criminal justice system. So black women, if nobody told you that they love y'all, I want to let all my sisters out there know I love y'all. I love every last one of you. Stay strong, ladies. Y'all need to come together. Black women need sisterhood circles. Y'all need to come together. Black women need to stop being so petty. Black women need to stop fighting each other. Black women need to stop being so gossipy. Black women need to stop fighting over men. Black women need to come together because y'all need each other. So many of the problems of black women could be solved if black women just came together and worked together. Dr. Umar Johnson can't do that. Sisters have to do that. Sisters have to do that. A non-religious, non-political sister support circle. A non-religious, non-political sister support circle. Very important. I'm hoping to see some of you in Detroit next Friday and Saturday. I'm hoping to see most of you in Detroit next Friday and Saturday. Come on out to Detroit. Join us at the Tower Center. Come on out to Detroit, Michigan. Join us at the Tower Center Friday, June 9th and Saturday, June 10th from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Yours truly, Dr. Umar Johnson, will be training you to be a president of a chapter or study group of the National Independent Black Parent Association. Dr. Umar Johnson will be training you to be a president or study group chair of the National Independent Black Parent Association. Okay? Register now, princeofpanafricanism.eventbrite.com. Register now, princeofpanafricanism.eventbrite.com. Detroit, Michigan, Friday and Saturday, the 9th and 10th of June, next weekend. Help us build and organize black parents in the 7 areas of school discipline, special education, school finance, school policy, social support, homeschooling, parent advocacy. I want to see you in Detroit. Chicago, y'all need to be in Detroit. Indianapolis, y'all need to be in Detroit. Milwaukee, y'all need to be in Detroit. Ohio, y'all need to be in Detroit. Everybody needs to be in Detroit. The South, the Midwest. Stop waiting for Dr. Umar Johnson to come to you. Stop waiting for Dr. Umar Johnson to come to you. Okay? In fact, I'm about to significantly reduce my lectures and start writing more. I need to transition from orator to author. I love to write, and because of my travels, I haven't been able to write enough. And the traveling, you know, not the traveling. I love the traveling. I love the speaking, but it's always the logistics. Like yesterday, I had to cancel an event because security, you know, that type of stuff, you know, it wears you down. It wears you down. We've been planning the Brooklyn event for over 4 months. So many hundreds of people bought tickets, and I had to cancel it because I couldn't locate my security. Those types of things really wear me down. So I'm going to start pulling back on the lectures. I'm going to start pulling back on the lectures, and I'm going to start doing some more typing, getting some more books done. I only have 1 book that's not acceptable for a scholar of my caliber, so I'm going to have to pull back on the speaking and get some more lectures done. But I hope to see you guys in Detroit. Women with low self-esteem are more likely to become victims of domestic violence. Domestic violence breeds low self-esteem. Okay? Women with low self-esteem are more likely to tolerate domestic abuse. Okay? Brothers and sisters who fight tend to go on to become victimizers. That's another reason why we cannot let sibling rivalry take root in our families. That's another reason why we cannot allow sibling rivalry to take root in our families. Don't let your sons beat up on their sisters. Don't let your sons bully their sisters. Don't let the sisters bully the sons, because the research is showing a relationship between sibling rivalry and future domestic abuse. The way we let our children treat each other can be a breeding ground for future domestic abuse, so don't let it happen. Black women aged 20 to 24 experience the highest level of intimate partner violence in the United States. I'm going to repeat that. That is very important. Black women age 20 to 24 experience the highest level of intimate partner violence in the United States. Did y'all hear that? Black women experience more intimate partner violence than any other woman in America. 20 to 24. That's college. That's college. Black women in college are being beat on more than any other sister. Black women in college are being beat on more than any other sister. Black women in college are being beat on more than any other sister. Traditionally, women were battered by their husbands. 50 years ago, if a woman was being beat, she was being beat by a man who was married to her and taking care of her. Don't make it right, and it don't make it acceptable. Still wrong. Still an issue. But 50 years ago, if a woman was being beat, it was by a husband. Today, our black women are being beat by sex partners, lovers, serial monogamists, one-night stands, boyfriends. Why are black women letting men who don't even take care of you? Black women are letting men who don't even take care of you abuse you. Okay? We got to do something about that. Teenage girls being beat on by boyfriends, we have to stop that. It's not acceptable, black family. And check this out. A growing number of black women are being abused by men who they never lived with. You're being beat by men who don't occupy any responsibility in your life. Black women are more likely to be abused by men they don't even live with. So you letting this man rent space in your life, and he's not even accountable for your life. You're letting this man rent space in your life, and he's not even accountable for your life. Verbal abuse at the job has steadily increased over the years, and it's one of the leading forms of abuse. A lot of black women and men are being verbally abused by their bosses. A lot of black women and men are being verbally abused by their bosses. A lot of black women and men are being verbally abused by their bosses. Don't let this happen to you. Stand up against it. Fight back. This is why we need a council of elders. This is why we need a council of elders. This is why we need a council of elders. But you can't have elders on the council who are also beating their women. You can't have elders on the council who are also beating their women, and you can't have elders on the council who are allowing themselves to be beat. This is why we say we need, this is why Pan-African nationalism. See, y'all don't really comprehend the full totality in magnitude and intensity and impact when I say I stand for Pan-African nationalism. Pan-African nationalism is not just about institutions. It's about community infrastructure. It's about accountability. Who do black women go to in the black community when they get abused? They can't go to the imam because the imam ain't going to do shit. I grew up in the masjid. I grew up in the masjid. I grew up in the masjid. I respect the masjid. But let's be honest, Sunni Muslim brothers. Let's be honest, Sunni Muslim brothers. How often does the imam or the brothers of the mosque intervene in a domestically abusive situation? How often? They don't. They don't. The church. Let's talk about the church. How often does the pastor and the bishop intervene in domestically abusive situations? They don't. They don't. I find it real interesting that the two largest religions in black America, I find it real interesting that the two largest religions for black people in the world are accomplices to white supremacy, and they are accomplices to domestic violence. No disrespect intended. I'm giving you facts. I find it very ironic that the two largest religions in the world for black people, religions that are supposed to be about the worship of God, the religions that are supposed to be about helping you connect to your divine self, are also the two biggest silent accomplices to white supremacy and domestic violence against black women. Many clergymen and clergywomen are aware of abused members of the congregation but choose not to speak up because they don't want to embarrass the church or the mosque. Many abusers go on to be rapists, which is the worst form of abuse. Many abusers go on to be rapists, which is the worst form of abuse. Rape. Black women are more likely than any other woman to be victimized by rape. And date rape is a very big problem in the black community. Date rape is a very big problem in the black community. Shout out to Katrina in Brooklyn. You didn't miss my lecture, sister. It was canceled or postponed. They said it's a good restaurant in Brooklyn I need to try out today. A good restaurant in Brooklyn I need to try out today. Please text address. Somebody asked me how much are the tickets for the Detroit training. How much are the tickets for the Detroit training? The tickets for the Detroit training are $50. Okay, that helps me cover the cost of the training, $50. I hope you can pay it. You spend more than that on your nails, on your hair, on your Timbs, on lunch, on gas. Hopefully, I'm not asking too much. But if $50 is too much, then I can understand. I'm sorry, just had to. This is for my Minneapolis lecture. Shout out to Minneapolis. I will see you, Minneapolis, Minnesota, the Capri Theater. Minneapolis, Minnesota, the Capri Theater. Okay, Wednesday, June 14th, Seattle, Washington, Seattle, Washington, Seattle, Washington. Saturday, June 17th, Minneapolis in Seattle. We going Midwest and we going Pacific Northwest. We going Midwest and we going Pacific Northwest. We going from Detroit to Minneapolis to Seattle. Dr. Umar's next 3 stops after Brooklyn today for the Mama Maddox event. Detroit, Minneapolis, Seattle. Okay. 1.3 million women and 835 men reported being victims of domestic violence in 1 year. How many people report domestic violence in a year? 1.3 million women and 835,000. Okay, every year. Every year. That's a lot of women, and black women are disproportionately represented in that city. Non-fatal partner violence accounted for 20% of violent crime in 2001. Did y'all hear that? Partner violence accounted for 20% of crime in 2000. Domestic abuse accounted for almost 25% of the crimes that took place in America in 2001. Fort Lauderdale tickets are $20. Please get them. They're going fast. I will be in Fort Lauderdale September 30th. I will be in Fort Lauderdale September 30th. I will be in Fort Lauderdale September 30th. If you would like me to be a guest speaker, you can send an email to my assistant. If you would like for me to be a guest speaker, you can send an email to my assistant, Dr. Umar Speaks at yahoo.com. Dr. Umar Speaks at yahoo.com. DRUMAR Speaks. DRUMAR Speaks with an S at yahoo.com. Okay? $1,200 women were killed by an intimate partner in 2000. 1,247 women were killed by their partner in 2000. 1,247 women were killed, murdered, put to death by the person they love in the year 2000. Sisters, let's get serious. Sisters, let's get serious. Access to firearms increases the possibility of domestic homicide by 5 times. Access to a firearm increases the possibility of domestic violence by 5 times. Some black women and men are not only dealing with a domestically abusive partner. If that partner has a gun, it's one thing to deal with domestic abuse. It's something else to be dealing with a partner who has access to a firearm. Don't deal with partners who have access to firearms. Are y'all listening to me? Are y'all listening to me? Don't deal with partners who have access to firearms. Okay? That increases the likelihood of violence, and it increases the likelihood of death by 5 times. In fact, black women, when you date, sisters, when you date, you should always ask the brother, do you carry? Do you have a gun? Do you keep weapons in your house? This is important. Women are being... I've known men to put gun to a woman's head and say, I'll blow your brains out you ever try to leave me. Do you know how traumatizing that is for a man to put a gun to a woman's head and say, I will kill you if you try to leave me? Okay? Okay? Them weapons ain't good when you're dealing with domestic abuse. The amount of women killed by their partners was 3 times higher than women killed by men they did not know. Did y'all hear that? Let me repeat that, black women. Let me repeat that, my sisters. Let me repeat that, my beautiful African queens. A woman is 3 times as likely to be killed by a man she knows than a man she don't know. A black woman is 3 times as likely to be killed by a man she knows than a man she don't know. A black woman is 3 times as likely to be killed by a man she knows than a man she don't know. It's not the stranger in the street. It's the brother in your sheets. It's not the stranger in the street. It's the brother in your sheets. It's not the stranger in the street. It's the brother between your sheets who is more likely to take your life. Okay. How do we change this? Prevention is the best intervention. How do we change this? Prevention is the best intervention. What do I always say? If I can give black women one gift, if I can give black women one gift, if I can give black women one gift, it will be self-esteem through the roof. It would be self-esteem through the roof. Because if a black woman has supreme self-confidence, if a black woman has supreme self-confidence, I know she will never let a man put their hands on her. I know she will never let a man mistreat her. If a black woman has supreme self-confidence, that is the best way to prevent her from ever being victimized by domestic violence. "50% of offenders in state prison for spousal abuse killed their victims. 80% of the victims were women." I repeat, 50% of offenders in state prison for spousal abuse killed their victim. 81% of the victims were women. Dating can be dangerous. And we know all brothers don't hit their women. We know all women don't put hands on their brothers. We know that. Most black men are good black men. Most black men are strong black men. Most black men do what they're supposed to do. Shout out to all the husbands out there, fiancés, baby fathers, partners, intimate lovers who protect their women, honor their women, and look out for their women. We're talking about the ones who don't. We're talking about the ones who don't. More than 1 million women and 370,000 men are stalked every year in America. Stalking is not good. Stalking is not good. Stalking is not good. Stalking leads to death. Stalking leads to rape. Stalking leads to domestic abuse. But some of us love stalkers because it makes us feel needed and wanted. Some of us love stalkers because it makes us feel needed and wanted. Some of us love being stalked because it makes us feel needed and it makes us feel wanted. More than 1 million women and 370,000 men are stalked every year in America. 77% of female victims know their stalkers. 77% of female victims know their stalkers. 81% of women stalked go on to be abused by perpetrators. 81% of the women stalked go on to be abused by the perpetrator. You don't want a relationship with somebody who stalked you. You don't want a relationship with someone who has stalked you. Most of the time, if the person entered your life by forcing their way into your life, by stalking you, it is more likely to lead to abuse. Never start a relationship with a stalker. The stalking will never end. Never start a relationship with a stalker. The stalking will never end. And guess what? The average case of a stalker, let me ask y'all a question. How long do you think stalking lasts? How long do you think stalking lasts? How long do you think stalking lasts? The average case of stalking lasts 2 years. The average case of stalking lasts 2 years. That's a long time to have somebody renting space in your life. 69% of women who get protection orders have the orders violated. Restraining orders help, but they are not a solution. Restraining orders are band-aids. 69% of women who got restraining orders had the order violated by the man. Most women who get restraining orders, the order ends up being violated by the man. That's crazy. And a lot of times women are responsible because you let him get back in your head. A lot of times women are responsible for the restraining order being violated because you let that man get back into your head. A lot of times women are responsible for the restraining order being violated because you let that man get back into your head. Baby, I love you. I won't hit you again. I'm sorry. Let's start over. You know what he does? He does the same thing the pastor does. He does the same thing the pastor does. Sell you a dream. Sell you a dream. He does the same thing the pastor gonna do tomorrow morning at church. Sell you a dream. And it's the dream that keeps you coming to church. It's the dream that keeps them coming back into your relationship. It's the dream that allows you to let that domestically abusive man to rent space in your life again. And then he ends up not only traumatizing you, traumatizing your children. He not only ends up traumatizing you, he traumatizes your children. He not only ends up traumatizing you, he ends up traumatizing your children. Check the text. What if you have a child? What if you have a child with the abusive partner? Then I would say to you, have you ever heard of supervised visitation? Have you ever heard of supervised visitation? Because I'm of the belief a child needs their father even if he's abusive. A child needs his father even if he's abusive. A child needs his father even if the father is abusive. But that's why we have supervised visitation. That's why we have supervised visitation. That's why we have supervised visitation. If you cannot trust that man around you, if you cannot trust that man to be alone with the children, you can set up supervised visitation. It's not the best case scenario, but it's better than nothing. But as much as I am against domestic abuse, I don't want women to use domestic abuse as an excuse to keep the father from his children. I don't want women to use domestic abuse as an excuse to keep the father from the children. Okay? Set up supervised visitation. Set up supervised visitation. Okay? 81% of women go on to be abused by the stalker. 81% of women who have ever been stalked will go on to be abused by the stalker. Okay? 76% of female homicide victims had been stalked by the person who killed them. I hope you heard that. I hope black women listening. I hope black women are listening. And I want to issue a challenge to the hip hop community. I want to issue a challenge to the hip hop community. And my challenge to the hip hop community is two things. Number one, there needs to be a campaign against domestic abuse by rappers, by corporate gangster rappers. Y'all corporate gangster rappers, y'all need to have a campaign against domestic violence in the hood. And y'all also need to do a rap song. I want to challenge our conscious rappers to do a rap song against domestic abuse. Bring attention to this silent cancer in our community. Rick Ross, Lil Wayne, 50 Cent, Jeezy, T.I., Jay-Z. Okay, and I'm not singling them out. I'm just naming some of the popular people. Okay, Meek Millie. Okay, we need y'all. The Weeknd, all these brothers and sisters in hip hop. When are y'all going to do a rap song in video highlighting domestic abuse in the black community? Even black women rappers, black women need to, Nicki Minaj, Remy Ma. Black women need to do a song. We need to highlight this. The R&B singers need to do a song on domestic abuse. Kendrick Lamar need to do a song on domestic abuse. Drake needs to do a song on domestic abuse. Okay? 54% reported stalking to the police before they were killed. Check this out. 76% of female homicide victims have been stalked by the person who killed them, and 54% of them told the cops. Isn't that interesting? Of the 74% of women who were killed by the stalker, 54%, most of them told the police and the police didn't do anything. 54% of them told the police and the police didn't do anything. Black women suffer deadly violence from family members and partners at a higher rate than any other ethnic group, 35% higher than white women. Black women suffer from domestic violence and rape and abuse and death at the hands of an intimate partner, 35% more than white women. And a lot of that has to come from the fact that black men are so stressed out. Black men are so angry. Black men are so lonely that instead of getting help, we're beating on our women. We got to get help for our brothers. In fact, I might need to do a domestic violence tour. Dr. Umar might need to do a domestic violence tour where I go around confidentially meeting with brothers who got this issue, where I go around confidentially meeting with black men who have this issue. Nearly half of all black women reported some sort of rape or molestation by age of 18. Half of all black women report some sort of rape or domestic violence by age 18. Nearly half of all black women report some sort of domestic violence or rape by age 18. Not acceptable. Homicide at the hands of a current or former partner is the #1 killer of black women 15 to 34. Did y'all hear that? The #1 cause of death for a black woman. The #1 cause of death for a black woman. The #1 cause of death for a black woman between the age of 15 and 34 is homicide at the hands of a lover. Did y'all hear that? That don't even sound real, do it? That don't even sound real, do it? The leading cause of death for black women 15 to 34 is murder at the hands of the man who says he loved them. Come on, sisters, we got to get it together. And black men, we got to get them ski mask teams together. Black men, we got to organize them ski mask clubs. Black women should be able to pick up the phone and say, hey, brothers, I'm being stalked. This is his name. This is his address. Hey, brothers, I just got beat by my boyfriend. This is his name. This is his address. When are black men going to step up and go to war against black men for black women? When are black men going to step up and go to war against other black men for black women? When are black men going to step up and go to war against other black men for black women? Listen, and I don't want to say this, but I have to. Listen, I don't want to say this, but I have to. Listen, I don't want to say this, but y'all expect me to keep it 100% unapologetically African every time. I don't want to have to say this, but I'm going to say it. I just came from China. I just came from the Republic of China. Mao Zedong, one of the greatest revolutionaries in modern time, who studied and copied Garvey. I went to the Mao Zedong Square, Tiananmen Square. I was there. I stood under the painting of Mao. I visited that area of Chinese government. Before Mao could have a revolution against any other nation, he had to have one inside his country first. Before he could go to war with any other country, he had to have a war with his own people first, a war with the mind. So do you know what I'm saying right now? I'm saying that black America going to have a civil war before it goes to war with white supremacy. Black America is going to have a civil war before it goes to war with white supremacy. Quote me, black America is going to have to go to war with itself to purge the post-traumatic slavery, to purge the self-hate, to purge the character assassin, to purge the pedophiles, to purge domestic abuse, to purge. We're going to have a civil war with ourselves before we can go to war with white supremacy, because most of our people are loyal to white supremacy. You can't go to war like this. We ain't ready for no war. And when I say war, don't jump to the physical. Don't jump to the physical. I'm talking political, economic, spiritual, cultural, social. We ain't ready. This is coming from King Kong consciousness. This is coming from King Kong consciousness. We ain't ready yet. We ain't ready yet. We got to have a house divided against itself cannot stand. Jesus Christ said, a house divided cannot stand. A house divided against itself cannot stand. We got to go to war with ourselves before we go to war with the white man. Because we got too many black people who want to fight with the white man against us. Most of us want to fight with the white man against us. There has to be a civil war before there can be a race war. There has to be a civil war before there can be a political, economic race war. Black America got to purge itself before you go to war with your oppressor. That's facts. That's facts. That's facts. And it don't even mean you got to take a life. It ain't got to be violent. It ain't got to be violent. But it's going to have to be political, economic, social, cultural, intellectual, and institute. We got to he's not on this team. She's not on this team. He's not on. We got to call. We got to put together a list. These brothers and sisters are not on this team. These brothers and sisters are not on this team. One out of every 5 high school girls are victimized by their lovers. 1 out of every 5 high school girls are victimized by their lovers. Black men, we have to be involved in the lives of our daughters. Black men, we have to be involved in the lives of our daughters because too many of them are being abused. Too many of them are being abused by their boyfriends. 25% of 8th and 9th graders report being victimized. 25% of 8th and 9th graders report being victimized. 25%. 35% of 15 to 20-year-olds report rape, violence, or weapons threats. 35% of 15 to 20-year-old girls. 35% of 15 to 20-year-old black girls report rape, violence, and weapons threats. Girls who are abused by partners are more likely to smoke, drink, and use drugs. Teenage black girls dealing with domestic violence are more likely to smoke, more likely to drink, more likely to use drugs to cope with the pain and anguish and trauma of the violence. And in many cases, the abuser will provide them with the drugs. If you dating a man and he offering you marijuana, he offering you cigarettes, he offering you alcohol, crack, why are you in that relationship? Let me date a woman and she offer me some drugs, huh? That's a relationship I don't need to be with. 1 out of 8 pregnant teenage girls report being abused by the baby's father within the past 12 months. This is sad. It's getting sad now. It's getting real sad now. It's getting real sad now. 1 out of every 8 teenage black mothers report being abused by the father within the past 12 months. That's sad. That means we got men beating on pregnant women. We got brothers beating on pregnant women, emotionally abusing pregnant women, and even raping pregnant women. We got to pull the skirt up on this crisis. Why isn't the black conscious community dealing with this? Why isn't the mainstream black community dealing with this? Why isn't black religion dealing with this? Why aren't black leaders dealing with this? I ain't heard no black leader talk about creating a campaign, not making a statement. I don't give a damn about no 2-second soundbite. I'm talking about a campaign against domestic abuse. You know why? Because they either guilty of it, got people in their family guilty of it, or got a whole congregation guilty of it, and they don't want to expose them. I'm going to say it again. The reason black leadership isn't dealing with the violence against black women is because they guilty of it, got men in a movement guilty of it, or got a whole congregation guilty of it, and they don't want to expose them. They care more about their organization than they care about the health of black women. I'm just going to call it like I see it. Facts. I'm just going to call it like I see it. 1 out of every 3 teenage relationships involve physical violence. Dating can be dangerous. Black men, make sure you know your daughter's boyfriend. Your daughter can't have no boyfriend if you ain't got his name and number. That's right. Your daughter can't have no boyfriend if you ain't got his name and number and you ain't met this young man. What she means she got a boyfriend and you don't know who he is? Is you crazy? What you mean your daughter got a boyfriend and you don't even know who he is? Single black mothers, step up to the game. Because once that boy knows she ain't got no man in the family, he think he can take advantage of her. That's the world we live in. Black people ain't got no principles no more. We ain't got no morals no more. We ain't got no scruples no more. We gave it all up for Facebook. We gave it all up for Twitter. We gave it all up for Instagram. We gave it all up for Snapchat. We gave it all up for the World Wide Web. Let's talk about rape. Now we're going to talk about rape. Now we're going to talk about rape. Now we're going to talk about rape. 8 out of every 10 rape victims knew their partner. 8 out of every 10 black women raped knew her partner. 11% of black women were raped by their fathers and their stepfathers. 11% of black women were raped by their fathers and their stepfathers. 11% of black women were raped by their father and their stepfather. That's a damn shame. When the man who brought you into this world took your innocence. That's a damn shame. When the man who brought you into this world took your innocence away from you. That's a damn shame. The black community, we got to organize. We got to get it together. We got to organize and we got to get it together. We can't allow this. A nation can only rise as high as the treatment of its women. A nation can only rise as high as the treatment of its women. I even had a case when I was with the school district of Philadelphia. I even had a case when I was with the school district of Philadelphia a couple years ago. I even had a case when I was working for the school district of Philadelphia as a school psychologist a couple years ago, where the granddaughter was pregnant by the grandfather. The granddaughter was pregnant by the grandfather. The granddaughter was pregnant by the grandfather. And the family protected the grandfather so he wouldn't get arrested. And they said that they didn't know who the real daddy was. And you in love with Jesus, but you let this go on. You in love with African spirituality, but you let this go on. You in love with black consciousness, but you let this go on. You in love with white Jesus, but you let this go on. 10% of black women are raped by boyfriends and ex-boyfriends. 10% of black women are raped by boyfriends and ex-boyfriends. 16% are raped by other relatives. 16% of black women are raped by cousins and uncles and nephews. That's sick. That's sick. So if you take the fact that 11% are raped by fathers and stepfathers, 16% are raped by other relatives, 27% of black women are raped by men in the family. 27% of black women are raped by men in the family, and then the black mother don't do nothing about it. The black mothers and the other rest of the family and the men in the family and the women and the grandparents don't do nothing about it. Everybody know that baby got raped by the uncle or the auntie, and y'all don't do nothing about it. And you know what's sad? Women rape and molest as much as boys. Excuse me, women rape and molest as much as men. Women rape and molest as much as men. Women rape and molest as much as men. Gender doesn't discriminate. Gender doesn't discriminate. Gender doesn't discriminate. 29% were raped by friends of the family. Check it out. 11% of black women are raped by fathers and stepfathers. 16% of black women are raped by other relatives. 29% of black women are raped by family and friends, right? You're talking about a third. A third of black women are victimized by men in the family. I thought blood was supposed to look out for you. I thought blood was supposed to protect you. I thought blood had your best interests. And do you know what's bad about rape? Black women get blamed for being victims. You know what's so bad about rape? Black women get blamed for being raped. They always blame the woman. Maybe if she wasn't around him, if she wasn't so fast, if she wasn't dressing like that. Are you serious? Are you going to let her be responsible for a trauma that was not of her own doing? They assume the black woman is to blame. And then she's normally emotionally connected to the perpetrator. Being raped by your father. You love your father raped you. How do you navigate that emotionally? How do you navigate the fact that your father, who you love, committed the worst crime that could ever be committed against you? And black women got to navigate this. This is why the Association of Black Psychologists, we got to step it up. This is why the Association of Black Counselors got to step it up. This is why the Association of Black Therapists got to step it up, because this is not acceptable. This is not acceptable. This is not acceptable. Mistreatment from the legal system. They develop depression, bipolar, borderline, mental illness, low self-esteem, alcoholism, unwanted pregnancy. What happens when a black woman gets pregnant by the rapist? What happens when the black woman gets pregnant by the rapist? What happens when the black woman gets pregnant by the rapist? What happens when the black woman gets pregnant? I've dealt with a lot of these cases. I've dealt with a lot of these cases. I know black women who kept the baby. They didn't believe the baby had a right to die. Some of them give them up for adoption. Some black women give the child who was conceived through rape up for adoption. Some give the child conceived through rape up for foster care. Some get abortions. And I know of one case in particular. I'm going to share this with y'all. I know of one case in particular. I'm going to share this with y'all. I know of one case in particular. I'm going to share this with y'all. I knew of a black woman who was encouraged by her religious institution not to abort the fetus conceived through rape. She kept the baby because she was told that it was against God to get an abortion. And I'm not judging one way or another. She was told that it was against God to get an abortion. She kept the child that was conceived in rape. The child came out looking just like the rapist. The child grew up to look more like the rapist. And the mother abused that child physically and verbally, unmercifully, because the child reminded her of nothing more than the rapist. If we're going to tell these women not to abort babies conceived and raped, we need to make sure she get mental health treatment. We need to make sure the child is looked after. This is a case where the child should have been put up for abortion or foster care. This is a case where the child should have been put up for foster care or adoption. I hope I didn't say abortion. Foster care or adoption. This child should have been put up for foster care or adoption. I am a pro-lifer at heart. Dr. Umar Johnson is a pro-lifer at heart. As black people, we're mostly pro-lifers, right? We're not judging nobody. Everybody got their history. All of us got our history. But we're basically pro-lifers, right? I can't tell a woman pregnant with a child conceived in rape. I can't tell a woman. I can't tell a woman pregnant with a child conceived in rape it's wrong to abort. I can't. I'm not going to tell them it's right. I'm not going to tell them it's wrong, but I can't. I can't. I love African life, but if a woman tells me I got to get rid of this, I can't. I don't know what you can do. I don't know what you can do. I can't tell that woman that she has to have a baby conceived in rape. I cannot do that. I cannot do that. Okay. And we used to have debates and discussions about this. And I've heard the pro and the con. You know, I've heard of children who were conceived and raped who grew up to do some good things for the community. You know, it's a tough thing. We have to eliminate this problem. We shouldn't even have to have a conversation about it. We shouldn't even have to have a conversation about whether or not women who get raped should or should not be forced to have a child. We shouldn't even have to have that conversation. We black people. We are black people. But this is why I say we got to have a civil war before we can have one against white supremacy, because we have picked up so much of the Europeans' culture. We have picked up so much of the Europeans' behavior. We have picked up so much of the Europeans' mindset. We are more European than the white man, which is why my next seminar is going to be my post-traumatic slavery disease. My post-traumatic slavery disease. That's going to be my next one. My post-traumatic slavery disease. I'm going to have to deal with that next. It's hard to prove rape in court. It's hard to prove rape in court. Very few rape cases are proven in court. That's another reason why women don't go to the law, especially black women. And this is why black women need to be careful around white men. This is why black women need to be careful around white men. Y'all black women dating white men? Y'all black women dating white men? If that white man rapes you, what court in America is going to convict him of raping a black woman? What court in America is going to convict a white man of raping a black woman? Show me a court in this racist country that's going to convict a white man for raping a black woman. You're not going to find one. You're not going to find one. You're not going to find one, black man and woman. And that's why I don't like our sisters dating outside the race, because it increases the likelihood that the man will get away with it. It increases the likelihood that the man will get away with it. 25% of black women were first raped before age 12. 25% of black women were first raped before age 12. 25% of black women were first raped. We talking about raped before age 12. 35% of women are raped before 17. 35% of black women are raped before their 17th birthday. She's not even a woman yet. She's not even a woman yet. 65% of women are raped by their partner. 65% of women are raped by their partner. And black women, this is why I tell black, don't play around with sex on the date if you're not giving none up. Stop doing that. Stop doing that. I've heard about too many rapes that took place because you want to play. You want to entice the man with sex. You want to arouse him, but you don't plan on having sex. Don't play with men like that, because some men ain't men. Don't play with men like that, because some men ain't men. Don't play with a man sexually. And you don't even know him. You don't even know this man. You enticing him, touching his genitalia, allowing him to touch your genitalia, kissing you on the neck, getting undressed. If you know you're not having sex, why y'all in the bedroom? Don't play. Some men don't have respect for women. Some men don't have respect. Stop putting yourself in a vulnerable position. There's more to life than sex. There's more to life than sex. Protect your vagina. Your vagina is a divine portal. The black woman's vagina is a divine portal. That is God's apparatus to reincarnate ancestors. Your womb is God's apparatus to reincarnate ancestors. Protect it, love it, cherish it, venerate it, honor it. Don't abuse or misuse it. That is the pathway to God. And because it is the pathway to God, you shouldn't let anything ungodly enter the divine gateway. You shouldn't let anything ungodly enter your divine gateway. Only 50% of rapes are reported in America. Only 50% of rapes are reported. FBI says only 37% are reported. The U.S. Justice Department says only 27% are reported. 1 out of every 4 women in college will be raped. 1 out of every 4 black women in college will be raped. 1 out of every 4 black women in college will be raped. Date rape in college is a big problem. Date rape in college, because our daughters love being alone with men they don't know with they hot asses. Our daughters love being alone with men they don't know after the frat party with they hot asses, and it'll change your life. When I was president of the Black Student Union at Millersville University, I came across a couple of these cases. I was even contacted by the sisters sometimes when they was raped by men. And how do you prove it? You drunk, he drunk, how do you prove it? Keep the alcohol out of the dating. Keep the alcohol out of the dating. It becomes an alibi for the crime. Keep the alcohol out of the dating. It becomes an alibi for the crime. 25% of same-sex partners are raped. 25% of homosexuals are raped by homosexuals. 25% of lesbians are raped by lesbians. And what are the risk factors for being raped? What are the risk factors for a black woman being raped? Low self-esteem, emotional thirst, hopeless romantic, quick to fall in love, excessively jealous, controlling behavior, stalking behavior, unrealistic demands, isolation. Remember, the predator wants to isolate you from your support. The predator wants to isolate you, black woman, from your support. He wants to cut you off from your mom. He wants to cut you off from your dad. He wants to cut you off from your girlfriends. He wants to cut you off from your sorority. He wants to cut you off from your support group. He wants to cut you off. Whenever a man wants to disrupt your life system, you should not trust him. Whenever a man comes into your life and tries to disrupt your life system, you shouldn't trust him. He wants you to stop hanging out with your friends. He wants you to stop going to the club. He wants you to stop going to church. He wants you to stop going to the barbecues. He wants you to stop spending Sunday with your mom. He's not a good man. No man would take you away from your support. No man will take you away from your support. No man will take you away from your support. If a man is taking you away from your support, he's setting you up for isolation. He's setting you up for isolation so he can abuse you. He's setting you up for isolation so he can abuse you. He's setting you up for isolation so he can abuse you. Don't let it happen. Don't let no man play the isolation game. Don't let no man play the isolation game. And guess what, brothers? Sometimes women will play the isolation game. Because women can abuse too. Okay? I once dated a woman when I was 25 years old. She was domestically abusive. 25 years old. And she told me that if you leave me, I'm going to beat myself up and call the police and tell them you did it. I'll never forget when she told me that. I will remember that for the rest of my life. And that's when I knew I had to end that relationship. She said, if you leave me, I'm going to beat myself up and call the police and tell them you did it. I knew right then and there I had to end the relationship. I knew right then and there I had to end the relationship. Because I had let it get out of hand. Yes, I had let it get out of hand. And when it came to that point, that's when I knew I had to end it. And do I have to tell you about the suicide rate? Do I have to tell you about the suicide rate? Do I have to tell you about suicide for black women raped? Black women domestically abused, a lot of black women who abused themselves. A lot of black women who were raped kill themselves. They will use drugs and they will kill themselves, especially when they are repeat victims. Repeat victims. Uncle keep raping me. Father keep raping me. Grandpa the neighbor next door keep raping me. Black girls are the youngest to be molested and raped. Black boys are not too far behind. And what's interesting is we talk about the Catholic Church. We talk about the rape of Catholic Church, but we haven't dealt with the rape that goes on in the black church. Stop talking about the white Roman Catholic Church and start talking about the black church. Stop talking about the white Roman Catholic Church and start talking about the black church. We have just as much rape and molestation in black religion than we do. We have just as much rape and molestation in black religion as they have in white religion. I done already told y'all. Black boy molestation is a trigger for homosexuality. I done already told y'all. Black boy molestation is a trigger for homosexuality. I done already told y'all. Black boy molestation is a trigger for homosexuality. I done already told y'all this. 90% of the black boys I've worked with in my life, I've been a therapist for almost 20 years. Over 90% of them were molested by men before the age of 12. I don't give a damn what Obama say. I don't give a damn what the psychiatric institutions say. I don't care what white psychology got to say. I'm telling you what I done lived. I'm telling you what I done seen. The black boys I done met, their homosexual trigger was same-sex molestation as a child. I don't give a damn what y'all got to say. I know what's leading homosexuality. It's not true for everybody. It's not true for everybody. In fact, now, even though I would still argue that sexual molestation of black boys in childhood is the single greatest trigger for homosexuality, I think today it is the socialization and indoctrination of homosexuality by the American media. I think the leading cause of homosexuality and lesbianism today now, possibly, is indoctrination and socialization of black children by mainstream media. Homosexuality is all around our children now. They weren't born gay. They're enticed. They're being enticed. They're being invited into the movement now. They're being enticed. They're being invited into the movement now. America is a sick country. America is sick. 1 million children are raped or molested every year in this country. Disproportionately black. 1 million children, disproportionately black, are raped and molested in this country every year. Children who are raped experience more delinquency, more academic problems, more teenage pregnancy. Girls who are molested go on to develop THOT-ish personality disorder. THOT-ish personality disorder. This is my disorder. I made it up. Thought. We all know what a thought is. That hole over there. Girls who are raped and molested, they lose value and respect for their womb. Girls who are raped and molested, who have their womanhood snatched and taken involuntarily, they lose respect for the divine portal. They lose respect for the divine gateway. They lose it. And they start over-sexing to deal with the trauma. They start over-sexing. They'll start having a lot of sex, trying to drown out the trauma of the rape and the molestation. And they develop THOT-ish personality disorder. That's when she's quick to have sex. She's quick to have sex. She get trains ran on her, multiple orgies, multiple head jobs, all kind of sick stuff our little girls are out there doing because they hurting. They're trying to drown out the pain, and they think the best way they could drown out the pain is to sex it out. THOT-ish personality behavior. A lot of black girls and black women suffer from THOT-ish personality disorder because they were raped and molested as children. I'm not disrespecting our women. This is no disrespect. I'm not making a joke. I'm trying to make the message clear. I'm not making a joke or mockery of anyone. I'm trying to make the message clear. We can end THOT-ish personality behavior. But the only way to end THOT-ish personality behavior is we have to eliminate rape and molestation in the black community. Strangers only account for 3% of children molested under 6. Strangers only account for 3% of children molested under 6 and less than 5% for children 6 to 11. Children are normally raped and molested by relatives. Children are normally raped and molested by relatives. Single parents are at an increased risk of having their children abused. Single mothers are more likely to have their children abused because there's no man protecting them. Single mothers are more likely to have their children abused because there's no man protecting them. Substance abusing parents are less likely to find a responsible sitter. Low income daycare provide poor quality of supervision. This is why it's better to put the money out for a good daycare. It's better to put the money out for a good daycare. We've even found daycare workers raping and molesting children. We found daycare workers raping and molesting children. We found children being raped and molested in aftercare. And some of you parents are trifling. You don't pick your kids up from aftercare until 7 o'clock when they're about to close. That's not acceptable. Now, if you don't get off work till 7, I understand. But some of y'all get off work 3 o'clock and you don't pick your kids up till 7 o'clock. That means the daycare has your children more than you. Why does the daycare provider have your children more than you? Why does the daycare provider have your children more than you have your children? Not acceptable. Warning signs of rape and molestation: bad dreams, daydreams, nightmares. Kids who are raped will have bad dreams, daydreams, and nightmares. They will suffer from anxiety, worry, nervous behavior. They will stutter, verbal shakiness, post-traumatic stress disorder, fear of being alone even for short times. Your son or daughter run up, don't leave me, don't leave me, don't leave me. Because a lot of kids don't feel comfortable telling on the rapists. A lot of kids don't feel comfortable telling on the molester because the molester has threatening. You tell your daddy gonna lose your job. You tell your mommy, I'm gonna lose your mommy. Listen, you tell your mommy and you're gonna lose your mommy. I will kill your mom if you tell your mom I molested you. I've heard these things. In fact, for teenage black girls, one of the biggest reasons I find why the girl don't tell on the boyfriend or the stepdad is she happy that her mom is happy. Did y'all hear that? I've had teenage girl, Dr. Umar. I didn't tell my mom her boyfriend was raping me. I didn't tell my mom my stepdad was molesting me because he make her happy. She never been this happy before. He take good care of my mom, and I didn't want to be the reason that my mom lose all that. I didn't want to be the reason that my mom loses all that. Did y'all hear that? Did y'all hear that? This how bad it is, y'all. This how bad it is, y'all. I don't want to tell my mommy because my mommy is finally happy, and I don't want to be the person that take my mom happiness, so I'm not going to tell my mommy that her boyfriend raping me. Facts. Dr. Umar Johnson, I'm going to pull the curtain up and the skirt up on all the issues we got. Dr. Umar Johnson, I'm going to pull the curtain up and the skirt up on all the issues we got. Dr. Umar Johnson, I'm going to pull the curtain up and the skirt up on all the issues that you got. Somebody asked me if they could buy the new shirt. If you want to order the new shirt, I'm going to make the new shirt available. I got them in black. I got them in white. The Dr. Papa shirt to show your support. I got them in black. I got them in white. And I'm going to make them available for PayPal. Okay, $30 a shirt, and I'll be able to ship it out. So if you want to order the shirt, it will be available soon. Just check my Twitter, my Instagram, my Facebook. Twitter and Instagram, Dr. Umar Johnson. Twitter and Instagram, Dr. Umar Johnson. Facebook, Dr. Umar Ifatunde. And you'll be able to order the shirt, show support for Dr. Umar, for all my unapologetically African, Prince of Pan-African supporters. One love. You will be able to order the shirt. Yes, bedwetting is a sign of molestation and rape. Bedwetting is a sign of molestation and rape. Bedwetting is a sign of molestation and rape, especially if they do a number 2. Especially if they defecating in bed. If a child is in the 3rd grade and they're defecating in the bed, I have to consider rape or molestation. I once had a case at a school in Philadelphia where a girl went into the bathroom and spread feces all over the bathroom. A middle school girl went into the bathroom, spread feces all over the bathroom. The school called me. I told the school that I suspect possibly that the child could have been raped or molested. The mother called me, cursed me out. I ordered the school to do an investigation. They did the investigation, found out that somebody in the family was molesting the girl. I don't know if it was the stepdad, the dad, but the girl was being molested. And guess why she spread feces over the bathroom? Guess why she spread feces over the bathroom? She spread feces over the bathroom to protect herself from any more attempts by the perpetrator. She spread her shit around the school bathroom as a defense from the perpetrator. And this is the same reason why children will defecate in the bed. Because if I do on myself, he won't be able to enter me. He won't want to rape me because I stink. He won't want to rape me because I got shit all over me. So I'm going to do on myself to protect myself from the perpetrator. This is how bad it is. This is how bad it is. And children who can't sleep, insomnia in children, you got to rule it out. It doesn't mean it's automatic. Nothing is automatic in psychology, but it is a risk factor. Nothing is automatic in psychology. It's a risk factor. Nothing is automatic in psychology. It is a risk factor. And then we have myths that black parents operate on. What are some of the myths that black parents operate? We have a myth that our child will tell us if they got touched. Oh, my son would tell me if anybody touched him. My daughter would tell me, no, they won't. Most of your children won't tell you. Stop believing that because you got a good relationship with your child, they're necessarily going to tell you that they were raped and molested. A lot of them are not going to tell you. They don't feel comfortable, and children feel scared. They don't want nothing to happen to you. Sometimes they think the person who raped them might rape you. There's a lot of reasons why children don't tell. Wake up from your dream and stop thinking that if your child was touched, they will tell you. Most kids don't tell their parents when they're raped and molested. Another myth, the men and women in my family would never do such a thing. The men and women in my family would never do such a thing. The men and women in my family would never do such a thing. You don't know them like that. You don't know them like that. My boyfriend and girlfriend loves my daughter like their own. My boyfriend and girlfriend loves my son like he treats her like his own. I don't give a damn what he treats her like. You got biological fathers raping their daughters, and he's only a boyfriend. You got biological fathers raping daughters, and he's only a boy. All I'm saying is be careful. Be careful. Stop giving men free access to your babies like this. Get control of your THOT-ish personality. Get control of your THOT-ish. Stop exposing our babies to potential harm. Stop exposing our babies to potential harm. Parents who are needy are more likely to choose partners who are abusive. Many pedophiles are in denial about their problem and are ashamed to seek treatment. Many pedophiles are in denial about their problem and are ashamed to seek treatment. We need to screen babysitters and screen daycares to include who they will have around your children and make sure they got child abuse and criminal clearance. Tell adults ahead of time that what is or what is not acceptable. Tell the men, I don't allow my friends to hug my daughters. I don't allow them to hug them. Not until I trust them well enough. When we get married, you can give her a hug. Until we marry, you don't hug my child. Don't let your daughter sit on men's lap. Don't let your daughter sit on men's lap. Beware of real close touching. Beware of real close touching. Establish a real close relationship with your child. Your child is not dating your partner, you are. Your child is not dating your partner, you are. Your relationship mistakes should not equal your child's trauma. Your relationship mistakes should not equal your child's trauma. There is no such thing as being too careful. Watch who you bring around your children. Never let your child get punished by a potential abuser. Children think the world revolves around them and will feel responsible and guilty for being violated. They're less likely to tell, especially when threatened, no matter how close you are to them. The amount of boys being violated by men and women is growing to include fellatio acts that are harder to prove. Okay, fellatio molestation is a big problem. Fellatio molestation is a big problem. Okay, fellatio molestation. Putting their mouth on a boy's penis, having a boy put their mouth on their penis, jerking the boy off, having the boy jerk them off. It's not penetration, but it's still rape. And these cases are not being treated as seriously. So you need to sit down with your child and tell them what rape is. Tell them what is inappropriate. Molesters are smooth, controlling their victims through silent coercion and threat. Their offenses often take place over time and tend to be with people who have the confidence of the custodial parent. Nobody's going to molest your child unless they know you trust them. Nobody's going to molest your child unless they know you trust them. Nobody is going to molest your child unless they know that you trust them. Stop trusting people. Stop letting them think they have the free access to your baby. Only somebody who knows you trust them would even try. Oh, he would never do that. How the hell you know what he would do? How the hell do you know what he would do? You don't know. Stop trusting the life of your children, the sanctity of your children, the health of your children with other people. You're dating him, not your daughter. You're dating her, not your son. You saw the movie Antoine Fisher. Antoine was molested repeatedly by a woman. Antoine was molested repeatedly by a woman. And I hate when black kids go to foster care and adoptive care because you're more likely to be raped and abused as a foster child or as an adoptive child. And of course, we got all these rich white people going to Haiti and Africa, adopting black children to turn them into sex slaves and domestic servants. Rich white celebrities going to Haiti and Africa, adopting black children to turn them into sex slaves and domestic servants. Why the hell are you going all the way to Ethiopia to adopt a black child when you got thousands in America? Why are you going all the way to Haiti to adopt a black child when you got thousands in America? You know why you want a black child from Africa? You know why you want a black child from Haiti? Because black children in America know their rights. Black children in America know how to dial 911. Black children in America know what rape and molestation is. You won't get away with that with a black child in America. So you get one from outside the country who are going to feel privileged, who are going to feel special, that they're living a better life than they lived in Haiti or Ethiopia, who ain't going to say nothing being raped because they don't want to go back to Ethiopia, who don't want to say nothing being molested because they don't want to go back to Haiti, who would consider it to be a privilege to be a domestic house slave to a rich white person. You ain't got no business adopting no black child from another country when you got black kids right here. The only way you want to do that is so you can control them, isolate them from the outside world so you can rape and molest them. Isolate them from the outside world so you can rape and molest them. National Domestic Violence Hotline phone number. I'm about to wrap up. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. The National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-7233. The Domestic Abuse Help for Men. Domestic Abuse Help for Men. If you are a victim or perpetrator, as a black man, any black men out there, if you are a victim or perpetrator of domestic abuse and you want to get help, the number is 1-800-743-5754. 1-888-743-5754. 888-743-5754. 888-743-5754. If you live, Women Against Rape in Philadelphia, 215. I got my Philly numbers because this was one of the lectures I did at the African American Museum of Philadelphia. Philadelphia Women Against Abuse Legal Center, 215-387-7777. Women Against Abuse Legal Center in Philadelphia, 215-387-7777. Women Organized Against Rape, Women Organized Against Rape. And every city has these chapters. So if you don't live in Philly, that's okay. Every city has a chapter. So you can Google Women Organized Against Rape, Women Against Abuse, Older Adult Protective Service, Women Against Abuse, Women in Transition, and of course the National Domestic Violence Hotline, 800-799-7233. So, this was a summary of a power lecture I gave at the African American Museum in Philadelphia back in 2007. 10 years ago. 10 years ago. And the information is still relevant and the problem still persists. In fact, the statistics have gotten even worse and even more alarming. So, brothers and sisters, on that note, I'm going to get ready to pack up and get on out this hotel. It's almost checkout time. I'm going to head on over to Brooklyn to Queen Mother Leola Maddox's memorial today from 4 to 7. Then get back to Philadelphia and start preparing for the Detroit Midwest Regional National Independent Black Parent Association training. National Independent Black Parent Association training. Detroit, can't wait to see you in Detroit. Minneapolis, the 14th of June. Seattle, the 17th of June. Washington, D.C., Power Talk, June 25th. Is that the 24th or 25th? That's Saturday. Power Talk, Washington, D.C., June 24th or 25th. Fort Lauderdale, Florida, September 30th. Houston, Texas, December 30th. Fort Lauderdale, Florida, September 30th. Houston, December 30th. Peace and love, everybody. I hope this was beneficial. I will be coming back to you with more webinars as I start reducing the amount of lectures that I do around the country. All right. Appreciate all the love. Appreciate all the support again. Need to order the book. You need to order the shirt. I'll be putting them up on social network real soon. You want to get a copy, print out of the shirt. Also, the Africa tour. If you want to go to Africa with us, it ain't too late. Ghana, Togo, and Benin, July 27th to August the 10th. If you want to go to Africa with us, it's not too late. Ghana, Togo, and Benin, July 27th to August the 10th. July 27th to August the 10th. Text me for the registration. 215-989-9858. 215-989-9858. 215-989-9858. Also, I will have the makeup lecture date for my Brooklyn family. Once again, Dr. Umar Johnson apologizes for having to cancel yesterday's lecture due to issues of security. Dr. Umar Johnson apologizes to my Brooklyn family for having to cancel yesterday's lecture for issues of security. I hope to have the new date and time to you by Friday. I hope to have the new date and time to you by Friday. So if you plan on going to the next lecture, give me a couple days to get that new date and time. You won't have to pay because you already paid. Okay, brothers and sisters, one love. Appreciate y'all.